Welcome to Tempo Living's podcast, Tempo Talks, where we talk about home building, business, and everything in between. Today's guest is Tempo Living's very own operations manager, Michelle Clifford. Starting out at Corinthian Doors and working her way up in a top-tier project home builder in New South Wales. Michelle, welcome to Tempo Talks.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go back to the start, where it all began. You commenced your career working at Corinthian Doors. What were you doing there?
I started off working in HR as a HR assistant because that's what I was studying at the time. And then I moved into a PA executive assistant role where I supported 3 of the managers at the time.
And what drew you to taking up a career in HR assistance and executive management assistance?
I liked being able to help people. I liked the idea that HR was about being able to kind of set some structure. So that's my jam. But also on a people side of things, making sure that you're looking after the people, the most important asset in any organisation.
And HR, that terminology's been put in the bin these days, especially in the corporate world. Human resources, it's a bit cold, it's a bit harsh. Now it's people and culture. How have you seen that landscape change over the last 10 years?
I think that it's probably a lot less structured than it used to be before. There was a lot more focus on the WH&S and the strict safety sides, and it being more of a checklist and a kind of like a parking cop mentality, as opposed to the team working with other people on site or in the organisation. So I think there's a lot more collaboration now than there used to be. It's no longer a set of rules or a set of guidelines that are determined and put in a procedure book. It's actually part of the business. And I think that's part of the evolution of people and culture compared to HR, is that they form such a critical part of an organisation now.
And it's a new generation as well that you're working with now, the younger generation. I think the approach is very different now to even 15, 20 years ago. And especially as a male, we joke about this, and the only criticism is when you're doing a bad job. Otherwise, if it's all good and you don't hear anything, no news is good news. Mm-hmm. How have you seen that change?
Yeah, I think it's very much like you're saying there. As a female, we like to be told we're doing the right thing as opposed to assuming that we've done it perfectly. But I think the younger generation, I think, are a little bit more confident. They're probably taking more of that male approach. I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing really well at it unless you tell me otherwise, which I think is awesome, rather than those of us that kind of feel like we always had imposter syndrome instead.
And working with a young team, the guys behind Tempo Living, in terms of the directors, they've obviously got a lot of experience, 4 decades almost. But then working with a pretty energetic, young, pragmatic team, how does that make you feel, steering that ship from an operations manager level and seeing some of the success that they've had in their careers?
I love it. My favourite thing throughout my career has always been being able to see people progress, like bring them in, whether I've interviewed them and brought them in to have their start, to seeing them come through the ranks and surpass me. I love it. I love to see them being able to hit their goals and do what they want to do. We still joke, there's a guy that I hired at Corinthian on the factory floor that is now a major accounts manager, and every time I see him, he reminds me that I hired him on the factory floor. So
yeah, it's amazing. And also seeing in our industry, we talk about this often, and it's different career paths, even though it's in the construction industry. There are so many options around office work, operationally, from a drafting perspective, estimating, compliance, customer relations, and then also we're building houses, so site supervision. Mm-hmm. You must get a kick out of seeing people progress, and sometimes you probably think, wow, I didn't really expect that person to go down that avenue.
Absolutely. I think that until you're actually in the business, in this industry, you actually have no idea what you actually want to do. So a lot of people like me kind of fell into it, and along the way have just kind of seen which area we were interested in, progressed. But yeah, quite often I'll have people who are estimators that start to talk about wanting to draft or be out on site, and that's one of the benefits of this industry, is you can change pathways and learn so much about an organisation and the actual building industry by just changing tact.
And coming back to your personal story, after Corinthian, you shifted from supplier manufacturer to working as a general manager's right hand as an EA. Talk to me a bit about that and how you found shifting from one space to the other. And yeah, what was that business looking like 10 years ago?
I think my first few weeks, I was wondering what the hell I'd done, why I had changed careers and gone into a completely different organization. But once I kind of settled into it, it was the best thing that I had done. It was amazing for me being able to start as an EA. I got to learn so much about the business that I didn't even realize that I was picking up on. And it just gave me opportunities to continue to push and grow. The organisation at the time, we would have probably had 20 to 30 people, so much smaller than what it grew to. And I like to say I grew up with that business. So for me, that was an amazing opportunity, one I'm very grateful for.
Fast forward 10 years, we talk about you working in nearly every single department of that home builder. What was that like for you? You touched on your experience, but you worked in nearly every department, then progressed into senior management, operations management, and even general management of the Sydney business. Amazing.
I was very lucky. I had some really good people behind me that encouraged me, pushed me out of my comfort zone. I think I never in a million years would have imagined that I would have gotten to the roles that I did. Very grateful for the fact that I did. But more often than not, it was people approaching me. I joke about the fact that every time I went on maternity leave, I came back to more responsibility, which is hard, coming back into the market again after having a baby. But I came back to something that was either we doubled the size and therefore more employees, or I'd taken on a new role with more responsibility. But for me, it was just, I was presented with amazing opportunities. And like I said, I got to grow up with the organization. So I think that was one of the best things, was that I had learnt so much about the business and construction as a whole. And I hadn't even noticed that I had learnt as much as I had. So luckily for me, other people did recognize it and push me forward and push me out of my comfort zone. And it's got me to where I am.
What would have been one of your proudest moments working through those departments and getting into that senior management level?
I don't know. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a process person, and I very much like to implement systems and procedures. So I've implemented a few systems in my time. And I think that's probably been my biggest strength, but also one of my proudest moments, because you're building something from zero to knowing the entire process intricately, to be able to build the workflow that sits behind it and being able to choose the right tool that's going to work.
No doubt there were some tough moments as well for you, especially talking senior level. What were some of the lows and how did you get around it and overcome them?
I think from a construction perspective in senior level was tough. It was during COVID. So it was the hardest period to be managing the construction team. But I was really lucky. I had some great construction managers. The guys on the ground were fabulous. And they supported me, which could have gone the other way. They may not have. But yeah, they were fabulous. But I think probably my biggest learning actually came right at the very beginning. I was telling this story the other day that one of the things I had to do when I was the PA or executive assistant was to do conveyancing, and our spec homes. I had to actually make sure that once they settled, that the keys were ready to be handed over, appliances were in, and everything was ready to go. There's one particular one, I got a phone call from our conveyancer to tell me that the settlement had taken place. It was a Friday afternoon, and I realised I hadn't organised appliances. So the people were ready to take keys, and I had no appliances in the house, none even on site to be installed. And I just remember walking into Martin's office and just freaking out, but walking and going, I made a really big mistake. Like, help, what do we do? And he's like, that's okay, we can fix it. And he got on the phone, made 2 phone calls, and was like, they'll be out there within an hour. And that, to me, it taught me a lot. It taught me, one, to own it straight away. There's always someone that can help you. But also I learned how to deal with when staff come to you with a big mistake that they've made. There's no point freaking out with them. There's no point yelling and screaming. It's just about, what do we need to do to fix it? There's always a solution.
And I'm sure there are frustrating moments where you probably are kicking and screaming from time to time. But I think what you said there is so important for any leader or any business around, you've got a problem, what's the solution?
Correct. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the things I do most, is that whenever something crops up, because things do crop up, this is not a manufactured product. Every house, every block is different. It's about what can we do, and let's kind of take a second to breathe and figure out what's happened, but then jump right in. How can we fix this? Don't be afraid to ask questions of people. Ring up the trusted professionals or experts and just ask them a question and say, this is going to sound really dumb, but how do we do this, or how do we get around it? And working with and pulling on the resources that can actually help you.
Martin often says there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Exactly.
And any question that you've got, really, it's for the betterment of your team if there is an issue, to solve it. And you spoke about seeking counsel externally from subject matter experts, whether it's a certifier or an engineer. One highlight for me personally was we worked with 6 customers in a particular subdivision in southwest Sydney. They've been through 1 or 2 builders where they handed back the tender and the job and said, we can't actually build this home for you because there were too many restrictions on that block of land. Mm-hmm. I can't quite remember how we came about meeting with these guys, but I saw this as a huge opportunity for us to, one, fix their problem. They've settled on a block of land, they're paying rent, it's their biggest investment that they've made, and they can't build a home. That's a no shit moment. Mm-hmm. But being able to solve it, and we're just now handing the keys over to those customers, has been so fulfilling and rewarding. What has been a highlight for you from a customer's perspective, handing them the keys to their home?
I think, like, when you're talking about that particular experience, the fact that Tempo is so agile and so small, it does allow you to do things like that. And I think that you're keeping at the core what really matters, and that is that the customer is what matters at the end of the day. Yeah, there's difficulties, there's things that are going to crop up, whether it's a council restriction or something that's on their particular block, but there's a way of finding a solution that gets them into their home. It may not be what you thought it was going to be to start off with, but there's always something. So as long as you're open to kind of trying different things like you were, or the customer is open, or both, to be fair, are open to that, then it'll work.
Coming back to your systems and procedures, you're very process driven. When things do go pear-shaped in the office, how important is it then to assess the issue at the core root and then fix it so it doesn't happen again, especially, and we'll talk about this shortly, around scaling, making sure you're not making that same mistake time after time?
I probably annoy people a little bit, and it's a bit unorthodox, but when a mistake happens and somebody does come to you with the fact that they've made a mistake that is oh my God, what have I done? I like the fact that people feel sick to their stomach for a short period of time, because it shows that they care. But then the very next step is, okay, what happened? What went wrong? I should say after we fix the problem, but what went wrong, analyze it so that we never make the same mistake again. Some of these can be really costly. They can be thousands, tens of thousands worth of dollars. So you need to make sure that there is a step change and a process and a procedure put in place, whether it's a checklist, whether it's an extra task on a workflow, whatever it may be, to make sure that these things don't happen again.
That takes a lot of understanding and a lot of leadership to remedy those issues. Speaking around leadership, who did you look to in the early days, and what advice do you have for up-and-coming leaders, especially around mentoring?
I was really lucky. I had the owners of the business and I had the senior managers, shareholders at the time, that were very supportive of me, and their leadership style was very much what I've tried to mirror. Because of the fact that they did support me and help me get to where I am, and that I had never envisaged that I would, I wanted to make sure that I could do that for other people as well. So very, very fortunate. Unfortunately, there weren't female managers that I could aspire to or mentor at the time, but I didn't need it, to be honest, because I had so many people who didn't care my gender, didn't care my experience, whether I'd been to uni, whether I'd been on site, whatever. They just saw what my strengths were and what I would be able to do to help the organisation, and ultimately it helped my career as well.
It's amazing too. You mentioned, there's a couple of times you went on maternity leave and then came back to work and had more responsibility.
Yeah.
Clearly that's a testament to your own capability, and it's inspiring to see that. But also, those mentors and leaders supported you and fostered your growth to give you more responsibility when you came back.
Yeah, I think that was a trust. I say maternity leave, but I think the most I had off with either of my children was 3 months. And even then I was working from home. I knew I was never going to be the stay-at-home mum. That was not my personality. And I think they knew that as well, that no matter what I was or what was happening in my life, I would still be available. If anyone needed me, they could call me during that time. And so they trusted me. I was lucky that, like I said, it took on a lot more responsibility coming back. And I was lucky that I had people that were supporting me and let me do that in a flexible way so that it did work for both my family and the organisation. But yeah, I think that was probably a big trust from both sides was very important. And that was probably because I'd spent so long there and proven myself. And
amazing too, when you think about it, so I've got a 4-month-old. I'm quite hands-on at tempo, obviously. And managing that home life has been uncharted territory for me. How did you do it in the early days, managing family, but also, career progression too?
It wasn't easy. I think my children learnt very early on, probably from kindergarten on, that I was never going to be able to be at everything. But that I would be at the things that mattered. So whilst I couldn't go to every assembly and every time they may have presented an item or an open classroom, I was there for the big performances. I was there for the award ceremonies. I was there for anything that mattered. And then I would always make sure someone else was there for those little moments as well. So they say it takes a village. It really does. My husband and I kind of shared the workload for a time there. He went more part-time while I was full-time because there was no way that I was going to take on a GM role and be able to be part-time or even reduced hours. So he took on that responsibility because our youngest was still very young. And so, we were just kind of flexible. We now rely on family, obviously, but also friends. You get mum friends from school and it works great when we can carpool and switch it. But yeah, there's always something.
And you're a mother to 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Pretty inspiring for them to have you as a role model.
Thank you. They know no different. They've only ever known me working in construction. We'll drive past and see a house that's being built by the company I'm working for, and they're like, oh, your friends built that house. So I think now for me, I'm very conscious of trying to build, particularly my eldest daughter, their confidence in that they can do anything. They've kind of got interests, funnily enough. They've kind of followed me and we've built a few houses. So they've been involved, and my eldest daughter helped me to pick out the colours for our house and do that whole process, the furnishings and everything, because she's got an interest in interior design. So they're kind of following me without me consciously trying to direct them that way. My other one likes to draw and says that one day maybe she might draw houses. So
fantastic. Paint us the typical week for you, operations manager and mum and wife.
Yeah, it's not easy. Every morning is a struggle. It's making sure everyone gets out on time with everything they need. I'm very structured at home like I am at work. Everything is on a shared calendar so that all of the events and things we need to know about are there. I guess once I get to work or on my way to work, that's when I can switch off mum mode and I'm fully focused. I become myself and can focus on what I need to do at work and being able to make sure that we hit our deadlines we need to do. Very, very lucky that I have flexibility because it happens. Kids get sick and there's something on or there's an appointment you need to take them to. So being able to do that helps. And then I always joke about I finish work at the end of the day and I start my part-time job as an Uber driver. I'm shuffling between netball for one and dance for the other, and that's pretty much my week.
Now let's focus now on that flexibility, work-life balance, working mums. Mm-hmm. Our industry, from an operations perspective, we are represented quite highly with females in the office. Not so much on site. That's a work in progress. Speaking with Brad Armitage at the HIA, Housing Industry Association, they have a very strong focus around women in construction. They do an amazing job advocating for that. What's something that a home builder or anyone in business really should be focused on around, your female talent? I'll argue is some of the best in your business. Keeping them, but also encouraging them to come back to work if that's something they want to do.
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? Obviously, we take time out for maternity leave or to be available for the kids, do part-time or whatever. So you see your male colleagues or counterparts kind of get opportunities before you. And it's tough, and sometimes that can be disheartening. I think for me, I've always had the benefit of the flexibility, which has been amazing. I think before COVID and before people started working from home and it was a cool thing, I actually had the ability to do that. So I think for any organization, but particularly construction, we have some companies that are still quite old school in their thinking that you have to be in the office a certain amount of days or whatever to be productive. And I think a lot of it comes down to trust. For the right person, let them work from home, have the flexibility. I know myself when I did it in the early days, it was because I had to work around childcare. I always made sure my kids were looked after. I wasn't there looking after them while I was trying to work. I was fully focused on work, but it meant that the days that I had to pick them up early or whatever, I could do that. And it made a huge difference for me and allowed me to continue taking steps, like I said, to move forward that I probably wouldn't have considered had I not had that flexibility. So I think in today's day and age, we should be trusting our people a lot more. Why do you have them if you're not going to trust them to do the right thing? If anything, you probably work harder to prove when you've got that flexibility, because it means so much to you. You work harder. Instead of driving to work, you're now working at the time you would drive to work. So yeah, you don't want to lose it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. That flexibility. Also, the collaboration, I think, too, is very important. Coming into the office and working as a unit is important. But then, even for me personally, if I work from home, they're the admin days.
Yeah.
And you're super productive. And like you're saying, you probably end up doing more hours in that day. And productivity-wise, I think you're conquering a lot more.
Yeah.
So I think it is important for businesses to have that open-mindedness around flexibility working from home, but also making sure that you do collaborate when you're out in the office to make sure and to bring you up to speed. And this is to my next point. Is there a skills gap between men and women working in construction? Not so much around supervision, because we've addressed that females aren't represented anywhere near as much as what females are represented in the office. But is it a confidence thing? Is there a skills gap?
I don't think it's a skills or an ability gap. I think it's probably a lack of seeing that you can balance your home life and work. And sometimes you get stuck with just thinking about, this is what the picture is of what I need to do for either or. The guilt never goes away. There's always either mum guilt or work guilt. I should be doing one or the other more often. So I think it's probably less of a skills gap and more we're holding ourselves back in some respects as well, because we just think we can't do it. Like we were saying before, that I went to a HIA event a few weeks ago, the HIA Building Women, and one of the things that definitely stood out was that males just assume they're doing the right thing until they're told otherwise, and females are the opposite. We need to hear that we're doing the right thing, that we're on the right track. And so I think it's a bit like that. We assume that we're not going to be able to do something rather than assuming that we can do it and we can have it all.
And so advice to male leaders would be to make sure you are giving your staff a pat on the back, not just for women, but, the success of any business is a testament to the team behind you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely make sure there's just the little moments, the things. It doesn't have to be big thing. It doesn't have to be massive recognition, but just the little moments, celebrating those and not following them with a but. So not congratulations, we did this, but we could have done it this way. I think has been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as well.
And we can see anyone watching or listening, your confidence in your role, what you know about the industry. Rewind 10 years ago, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself now, knowing what you know?
Probably that I could do it. I think that, like I said, I've always had this imposter syndrome. I felt like I only got to where I was because I grew up in that particular company. I think changing roles, like coming over to Tempo, was actually a really good thing for me. And I realized that I can do it elsewhere as well, that I actually know more about the industry and in general than I thought. So I think, yeah, telling myself that I actually can do what these other people are suggesting I could do and having a go without being so scared.
Well, and talking around, previous life before Tempo Living, you worked for a builder building 100 homes a year, scaling up to almost 1,100 homes in a year. Mm-hmm. That is massive growth. How did you find that scale in terms of volume? And what did you do to prepare your team for that rapid growth?
It was tough. I think in some respects that kind of snuck up on us a little bit. There's probably more what I would do differently rather than what we did do to prepare. I think it's all procedures for me. So it was about getting in a system and making sure that we did follow a system and have a way of being able to measure ourselves and be able to go back and check when we made mistakes or whatever to be able to rectify them the next time around. But I think, to be honest, a lot of that snuck up on us. There was intentional growth, but we grew very quickly because the market grew very quickly and we just had to adapt. But it also gave us lots of opportunities. So,
how did you manage that with your team?
I think you very much had to give them the opportunities quite quickly as well. Some may not have been there very long and we were promoting them or we were giving them extra responsibility or asking something different of them to what we had been when they first started. So I think it was just about making sure that everyone was on the same journey with us and that they were all keen and passionate and wanted to kind of see how this worked as well, basically get on the ride.
You mentioned lessons learned.
Yeah.
Let's talk about death by 1,000 meetings. You've got innovation, you've got management meetings, you've got from a home building perspective, it's display home meetings. We need to also make sure that we're getting work done. Mm-hmm. What's your advice for builders looking to scale, and what are some of the headwinds that you've seen and what can be avoided?
I think you're right. The traps of being meetings to have meetings for the sake of meetings is never productive for anybody. And there were days where we would go home and work because there was meeting after meeting after meeting. I think one of the good things when I came back over to Tempo was remembering what it is like as a core and a smaller organization and being able to have the discussions and just do it in the office rather than it having to be a structured meeting. So I think that was awesome. I think there's a few lessons learned and a few things that I would say would probably be headwinds. People kind of lose track of what it was they were at the beginning. And I think that's critical. Remember why you were successful, what helped you get there along the way. So that could be anything. It could be a small family operator company. It could be a builder who actually meets with the clients directly and gives them confidence. But remember what it was that was important. And whilst you grow and you may not be able to do those functions directly yourself, make sure you've got the right people who will take them over and give that same confidence. Because for me, customer experience is everything. And the moment you drop that, you lose sight of everything else.
I think too, you mentioned, customer experience, and that's what we're here to do. Give them the best experience possible, building them their home. Personally, I think from a strategic standpoint, making sure that you're not reactive to quick decisions, being considered, but then not waiting. We use the corporate for an example, not having to wait till next month's senior management meeting to make a decision because you've got, the train's running.
Yeah.
And you're going with a whole lot of momentum forward. That to me is just, again, it's counterproductive really. And in terms of your growth, waiting a whole month to make a decision.
It's challenging. I mean, obviously there's a reason that it's done that way, but it absolutely is challenging. And like I said before, coming back over to tempo and kind of going back to those grassroots, I guess, reminds you that everything doesn't have to be a big problem and it doesn't have to be difficult to fix. They're actually quite simple. And it's just all about the right people and the right conversations and having the right team around you as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a different world. I don't miss that kind of structure and the having to wait. I love being able to just walk into your mart and go, hey, I think we need this. And you're like, sure, let's do it. Or you'll come out and kind of suggest, oh, hey, I reckon we should head in this direction. Okay, let's have a go. So it definitely makes it fun.
It's definitely fast paced. We're starting to see a bit more scale now and volume. Implementing processes, but not only that, your systems. If you could pick one, what would be the most important system or software to put in place for any builder that's looking to scale?
I think the holy grail in this industry is always an end-to-end system, something that is one system that will get you through all aspects. They all kind of feature or focus on one area, but maybe don't do the next so well. We're obviously about to implement our workflow tool ourselves. So we're looking at Builder-Trend, and the idea being that will give us our end-to-end solution. There's obviously not all of it will be there right away. We will step into it and do it in phases, but it's a project management tool. It's making sure that you've got your workflows, you can do your reporting, your forecasting, those sort of things, and just be able to do it at a click of a button instead of having to manually call up every month to find out which claims are due to come in this month or get an email and then collate them all. So I think absolutely having the right construction management software is critical.
And that ties in again to customer experience. How important is it for you to have clarity from your customers or our customers around selections, finance approval? So having a one-stop shop is like you said, it's the holy grail. We'll let our listeners and viewers know how it's going in a couple of months once we go live. But yeah, coming back to customer experience though, do you think we've overcomplicated things?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely think we do. And I think one of the benefits or the outcomes we're hoping to achieve with the way we're going to implement this new system is people being able to make decisions in the comfort of their own home. And color selections process is an absolute critical example of this. Do you need to go into a showroom and choose every element from the doorstop to the door handle that's going into your house? Having done this multiple times myself, I can tell you decision fatigue is very real. The last time I built, it took me 6 months after I had finished building before I could decide what I was doing my landscaping or get my furniture. I'd walk into a rug store and they'd be like, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I want, and walk straight back out because I was just burnt out from so many decisions. So I think one of the benefits of what we're doing now, where we've got our selections that are predetermined, they've been determined by an experienced interior designer, they're very modern and on trend, and having 8 external, 8 internal schemes to pick from, I feel like it's going to take that choice paralysis out of that process. But also there's enough choices in what we do to make people put their own personal touch on their home. So I'm excited to get the selections piece up and running of Builder-Trend so that clients can, from the comfort of their own home, start to shop around and choose some of the upgrade options. And anybody that does know me knows that I've been calling for a client portal in my previous role for like 10 years. So very excited that clients will have visibility into what we're doing as well from the selection side, but also from a progress of their job perspective and being able to see photos and have an insight and feel like they're part of that journey with us.
So you mentioned you've built a number of homes. What advice do you have for our customers? What's a must-have and what's something that you might overthink it and you don't necessarily need?
I think for me, a must-have is multiple living spaces. With a young family, they're starting to get a bit older, having like a central place for them to be able to be using technology, have a bit of privacy, but it not be locked away in bedrooms and stuff is critical for me. So I think absolutely having the space to have a family kind of time, but also them have their own space is critical. The nice to haves that aren't really critical, I don't know how often I necessarily utilized expanding a bedroom by 500 mil. Did that extra 500 mil really make a difference? Because we didn't necessarily use it, just space in the middle. So having another space that you can use works as well, whereas I kind of obsessed over that for a little while, I think.
That ties into some of Tempo's top 5. We call it the Tempo top 5 reasons to build true displays. I think having display homes where you just mentioned bigger bedrooms, we style it for growing families, intergenerational families, first home buyers, investors. So showing customers exactly what they're getting and giving them a bit more of the real choice. Again, we talk about more must-haves in our standard inclusions, but coming back to true displays, what would your advice be to customers when they are making that choice and considering a Tempo living home?
I think that the way we do it, where within one home you can see good, better, best in terms of the upgrade options that are available for a bathroom, for instance. There's one bathroom that's the standard inclusions, then there's the next level up, and then there's the premium range kind of thing. I think being able to see that makes a huge difference. And people can also see that you can have all three in one house and it doesn't look strange. You don't need to go premium in every single bathroom if your budget doesn't allow it. So I think being able to see and be able to make those choices for what suits you, but know that it still goes and it's been done well, is a good thing for customers. And absolutely seeing what you get as opposed to thinking you get things and then later on realizing that it's different once the house is built, or if you can't imagine things. Like my husband struggles with picturing the different changes and things. Walking through a display and being able to see it as it is critical for someone that can't visualize what those changes would look like.
We're talking about this quite a lot today in terms of the scaling piece. We reference customers and their selections in the process, but then talking about home builders and what advice you would give them around selections, upgrades, but then having a true display.
Yeah, I think it's critical. It's quite easy. Well, you could easily get caught up in the trying to win awards and trying to beat what the next person did, or even just getting caught up in what you think the market wants because that's what the competitors are doing. But in reality, customers don't want to walk into a home and look at it and go, I can't afford this. There's got to be a fine line between an aspiration of, oh, wow, this is the dream and it makes me feel great and therefore I want to buy it, and the reality of, okay, my budget lets me go to this point. So being able to see it for what it is critical. And it's done so well. My daughter told a friend of mine recently, I'm really critical and difficult to please when it comes to houses. And she's looking at building with us. And I had said, I could absolutely live in that house. I love it as it is. And she's like, I want to see this house now because my mum's really critical. And she struggles to kind of just pick something off the shelf. So I want to see it. And walked in here and went, oh yeah, I get it. So it's a balance.
I think too, for scaling builders, it is about balance, but it's also playing to your strength. Michael Gremo came on the podcast a few episodes ago. His family work across property development, commercial, industrial, but then in the home building game, custom home versus project home. I think, again, playing to your strength, but identifying what you're good at is also very important.
Absolutely. And I don't think customers expect to have that level of customization that we've kind of started to give them. I don't think it's they walk in to a home and think, oh, how can I change this? I think they do like to walk into a home and go, oh, I love it just the way it is. So if we can do that, why wouldn't we?
Well, Michelle, thanks so much for your insights. It's an inspiring story, your career growth and progression. We're very lucky to have you as part of our Tempo Living family, the Tempo team. And for the record, you're doing an outstanding job.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you back at the office.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that concludes today's episode of Tempo Talks. Big thanks again to Michelle Clifford for providing all those insights around home building, business, and again, everything in between. I'm Jeremy Whiting, and we'll catch you on the next episode.